Okay, I'm trying to find a bit of my house that isn't a complete wreck at the moment. I blame the cat, who's just come in from the outside. He says it's quite cold. Now he's stuffing his face. Um, Welcome to this episode of And Another Thing. I think that's what I'm calling it now anyway. But there's a few news things that came out today that I looked at and went, oh, I mean, it's sort of stuff that we already knew, but it's interesting when you see it written down again and it provokes sort of that reaction of like, shit. The Greenland ice sheet's melting. I mean, we've known that's happening, but it seems to be accelerating, and that's where the sea level rise can come from. I think it said in the article plus 1 metre by 2000, but it could be quicker than that. Plus 10 metres by 2300, it quoted. But they don't really know. They're trying to redo the modelling on it. When I say they, it's like scientists and stuff. Clever people with computer models. So that's going down. And then there's, well, the glaciers are literally going down. And then there's the Arctic at the moment, where temperatures are 20 degrees C above normal. Now, I think that means that it's getting into melting territory, and 20 degrees C above normal just isn't normal. Well, hence above normal. And that's going to really affect sea ice melt, and we're going to have blue water events in the Arctic. I can't remember what it said about when it's predicting that to actually happen, but it's not good. And of course that opens up like the Arctic to what Trump wants, what a lot of industrialists want, what a lot of climate denying billionaires want, which is minerals. So the likes of Greenland and the seabed and the Arctic and oil and gas. If there's no ice there, it's obviously a lot cheaper to mine. So this beautiful, pristine habitat could be really under threat. And the cat's down there now. He's I don't know what he's doing. I'm really hoping he hasn't put a mouse in that box. Have you put a mouse in that box? What are you doing? What are you doing? Say hello. No. He's not very talkative this evening, obviously. Well, he was earlier. It's actually when he wanted to actually get in the door. He was very talkative then. But anyway, yeah, so a Greenland ice sheet going, not a very good thing. And then, let's adjust this camera again. There we go. Then Professor James Hansen was talking about, so he's the one that raised the climate breakdown emergency stuff to the American Congressional Committee in 1988, I think it was. Sorry, my camera's going all over the place, but this is a bit of an impromptu and another thing. So I wasn't expecting to do it, but the news was pretty dire, so I thought I would. Yeah, so Professor James Hansen, there was an article in the Guardian today, actually, but also it's been on Blue Sky. I got off Twitter because, frankly, it's toxic. And, like, you post anything on Twitter, or X, I should say, and nobody really sees it who's in your sort of community, and you just get a load of trolls come, and if you get any response, you get a load of trolls swearing at you and calling you all sorts of things under the sun. I'm glad I'm not a woman on it, because they suffer even worse on there. So yeah, X, not really worth it. I mean, people say, oh, you need to be on that platform to combat, to have equal voice, but you can't combat the algorithms. Nobody's seeing your post. What's the point? So yeah, I go on Blue Sky now. JAM_HAR. It might just be JAMHAR. Not sure. Anyway, I'm on there. And then, so yeah, it was the story about what Professor James Hansen was on the social media as well. And he's basically saying that 2 degrees above, so we've gone past 1.5 above pre-industrial averages. That's global heating, which was pretty bad. Officially, I think we're at like 1.3 at the moment, but any scientist worth their salt is like can tell you that it's dead. We won't go below 1.5 again, because I mean, look at El Nino. The El Nino effect was supposed to make things hotter, but that ended last year, and now in La Nina, which is supposed to be cooling things down, but it hasn't cooled things down. It's been the hottest January on record, I think, in the UK anyway, and temperatures are well above average. And even though it's bloody cold today, I think that's why the cat wanted to come in so loudly. I think the wind chill's getting him. But anyway, yeah. So La Nina hasn't cooled things down, which is really very worrying. And Hansen is saying that by 2045, we could be at +2 above pre-industrial averages. So, I mean, +2, remember that's an average temperature rise. It's actually hotter over the sea, sorry, over the land than that, because that includes the 2 degrees is over the ocean, and even hotter in some regions like the Arctic and other places. So that's an average, but that's going to mean a massive increase in extreme weather, a massive increase in the flood events, the fire events. Like, oh, LA got wrecked by the fires, didn't it? That's just going to get worse. So yeah, go Trump. Yeah, drill baby drill. That seems like a great idea, doesn't it? Yeah, let's put more carbon into the atmosphere, because emissions are still going up. And that's what Hanson's saying. He's saying, like, emissions are still going up, even though actually countries like China are leading the way at the moment, because they've got a massive renewable energy scheme, and it's going so rapidly. They are transitioning away, whereas countries like America are going back to oil and gas. And of course the UK seems to hang on the coattails of the US, and there's even talk of Starmer approving the Rosebank field, which is in the North Sea, which would just be, I mean, why would you do this? Renewables is really growing well in the country at the moment. We've got loads of solar and wind power going on. We could use tidal power, battery storage. This argument, oh, well, it's not sunny all the time, the wind doesn't blow all the time. Well, actually, it's usually either sunny or windy, or both, and battery storage or other ways of storing energy, like in water towers or in disused mines where they can store the heat. There's loads of really clever engineering we can do, and that's what we're good at. So let's get innovative and do that, rather than building more bloody like Drax power station that builds water chips. That's just stupid. So yeah, Hanson's saying 2045 for +2 degrees. And the other reminder that he mentioned was about the Atlantic. Let's see if I can remember this. Can you remember it, Kat? No, you can't remember it. Atlantic Meridonal Overturning Circulation. Yeah, so that's this big current that brings warm water up to the UK and Northern Europe from the southern regions, and that's slowing down. Even at the moment, it's slowing down, and it might well stop in the next 20 to 30 years. Hansen thinks, and in fact, it's been talked about by a lot of scientists recently. They thought maybe not till next century, but the trouble is, all the worst case scenarios, and people are saying, oh, this Hansen, that is worst case scenario stuff he's talking, but the trouble is, all the worst case scenarios just keep getting broken all the time. So for somebody like me who knows a little bit of the science, but you just look at this, you just look at what's happening, and I know it's all political as well, so scientists have to make sure everything's peer reviewed properly, and it's going to be acceptable to various governments, like with the IPCC reports and stuff. So but if you actually talk to them offline, you find out that these worst case scenarios are the ones they think are actually going to happen. Oh dear, you can really see how messy my house is. There's the cat. He's just, what are you doing? Anything to say about the Atlantic overturning meridional current, Gideon? Any thoughts on that? He was getting annoyed this morning because he was trying to have a wee in the garden, but the blue tits are looking at the nest box, and so he's trying to have a wee in my flower bed, not my flower bed, my vegetable patch, which I'm growing, because I want to do more of that this year, just in case, you know, the supermarkets get a bit empty. And the blue tits start laughing. Well, they just squawk at him, and it's like he's being laughed at, and he gets really upset about that. But anyway, I've got that sidetracked by the cat again. So yeah, AMOC, the Atlantic Meridonal Overturning Circulation, might stop, and that would mean that we get like really cold. It'd be equivalent of I don't know, living in northern Norway, and our infrastructure isn't set up for that. So if that happens in the next 20 to 30 years, say 30 years, I'll be like 75 or something. I probably won't be alive, but I don't know, I hope I'm alive. But that would be really bad if that happens, because none of our infrastructure is set up for that. And given it takes us friggin' years and years to pass any decisions, let alone build stuff, imagine having to adapt our infrastructure in those timescales to deal with temperatures of northern Norway, let alone grow food. So we'll probably become climate refugees, which would be nice. Maybe I'll go and live in Ardèche if I'm still about. Got some friends there. So it's rather sobering. Should that stop, we're fucked, basically. And it won't just be the cold. The temperature differential between the UK and mainland Europe will be such that there'll be massive storms as well. It'd be like the channel becomes like Hurricane Alley or something. But anyway, you can read about that yourself. So yeah, 2045 plus 2C, AMOC stopping, ice sheets melting, Greenland ice caps melting, accelerating. And yet it feels like the climate denial is going up all the time. You had this, was it the Heartland Institute that's launched in the UK now? This big climate denial think tank, thoughtless tank, that's sponsored by Reform. They're going great guns at the moment, aren't they? They're getting loads of attention in the media and loads of attention from public. I mean, they, fair play to them. They're clever with their media. They're clever with their marketing, if you like, because they are really a company, aren't they? An oligarchy of rich men trying to control the population for their own benefit by constantly blaming like migrants and minority populations for everyone's problems, where, I mean, that's right out of the 1920s, 1930s playbook, isn't it? And of course, you've got people like Musk doing Nazi, I mean, you couldn't make this up, could you? I just bought a book, The Nazi Mind, 12 Lessons from History, which I'm going to read. And I'm pretty sure I'll be able to tick things off as I'm going through as to what's happening now, being very similar to what happened back in the 20s and 30s. And yet we seem to be just sleepwalking towards it. And we have to remember that, like, fascism didn't happen overnight. It took 20 odd years for Hitler and his cronies to rise to power. They didn't start killing people, but they started blaming people for all their woes, which is exactly what Reform are doing at the moment, and certain Tory politicians as well, rather than actually looking inwardly. What might have actually happened to cause our problems? Oh, Brexit. Well, that's been a great economic success, hasn't it? And the list goes on. So, yeah, climate denial is rife at the moment, and Rupert Lowe down the road in Great Yarmouth is leading that. I think they were so happy when the Climate and Nature Bill got talked to death last week. They claimed, yeah, we got rid of that net zero nonsense. What, you mean the nonsense that might actually save thousands of lives? Well, we're still quite relatively insulated from it in this country, whereas people in the global south, and actually, you know, you saw it in LA with the wildfires, but people in global South African countries, India, under so much more risk from it. Pakistan, Bangladesh, there's massive floods in Australia at the moment, and they're so much more vulnerable to it, whereas we're the richer countries are more insulated from it. So all a bit of a worry. And with especially, why is it all the worst things seem to be happening and coming together? We take 2 steps forward and 3 steps sideways and 1 backwards, maybe not in that order, but something like that. And you just wonder, why can't we have any sensible politicians that don't call aviation sustainable and start going on about sustainable aviation fuel as some kind of solution? No, the solution is to stop regular flying for leisure and stuff, so we're not putting more fumes into the atmosphere causing global heating. I mean, that's 2.5% of emissions, but, you know, that's going towards global heating. But the thing is, there's 10% of the world's population that flies, and a real small proportion of that 10% fly regularly. So you've got this really small population responsible for that 2.5% of aviation emissions. And we're just going backwards on stuff, aren't we? So whether that be personal liberty or freedom of speech, protest laws, democracy, or action on climate, when we're considering opening up Rosebank. Anyway, yeah, so keep an eye on the news for Professor James Hansen's story. It's interesting. I dread to think it's only Tuesday, isn't it? I don't know what's going to happen for the rest of the week, but yeah, I guess we'll see. Any parting words, Gideon? Really? Is that all you've got to say on the matter? Anything about the blue tits? No. He's camera shy. He's not really. I'm just checking to see if there's anything else that I was going to say. No. Just don't be a bystander, basically. If you can do something, do something. Whether that be writing to your MP, or MP Watch is a good thing to join if you can. They're trying to hold MPs to account for stuff. I was on a call with them this evening, so they need some donations actually to try and buy a few banners and support some of their work. So have a look at their website if you can. But yeah, that's it for now. I'll maybe do something else later in the week, but stay frosty and take care everyone. Bye.